Here we are beginning to put a stack back into an Ampico. The primary there is on the right, and you'll notice that the stack, this is the old-fashioned stack with the individual strikers, and each striker has to be put on individually on its pneumatic, lined up with the felted hole up in the key bed. Here you can see the felted holes up there and where the strikers are going to go back on. And the way we hold these in until we've got them all on is like this. You just take some scrap wood, drill holes in the blocks, and use it to substitute for the other two sections. Here you can see the striker area that the strikers are going to go on, and in back of those I've illuminated the felted holes. Now these have all been cleaned, but if you have to clean them, the way to do it is with some naphtha and a spray gun brush, and just you can run them in there like that, clean them right out. Even in between these holes works just fine. And you can just keep your finger here as an indexer and just go right down the list like that, and it'll work out just fine. Just you'll not miss a one, and it takes the glaze off of that felt and makes the travel through that hole a little bit easier. At this point in time is also a good time to trace out the brass tubing, the transverse behind the stack, above the stack. And as you'll notice, over here on the right we just have a single row of tubes, and here on your left there's a double row of tubes. So here you see you have two tubes, one stacked on the other, and they fan out to a single row. So you'll have to find out which is the first and last tube in each section and mark them, because once you get the drawer in, it's harder to find out, particularly after all of this stuff behind the stack is tubed up to your secondaries. Just so we don't lose them, I've marked the first nipples in each row, with the exception of this obvious one, with pipe stem cleaners. And here it comes out up here. Same way the rest of the way down. Also, this is a good time right now to spiff up the undercarriage of the piano. And if you have any touch-ups or anything to do, this is the time to do it. Like this little block here, you can make that look a little nicer. Take the crust off, and the next thing we're going to do is we have to remember that this whole thing is just held up by two big bolts. So with that in mind, we know that when we take these bolts out to put the next section on, the whole thing is going to want to fall down, and we've got to do something about that. So we're going to just use a pipe stem cleaner. We're going to wrap it around the a nipple, say 2 inches above one of the valve mounting studs. And then we're just going to wrap that thing around the valve mounting stud like this and tie it up together. And that will help to hold it. We'll do another one down below, and then when we get the fingers on, we'll do a few of the fingers and we'll tie them to these nipples in the transverse. Now then, when we remove these, this thing will just stay there like a rock. And when we put the next section up, we'll put it up with hot glue against the cork gaskets, so that the next time we remove the bolts, the whole thing will be tied just like that, and we're going to leave these on then to the last minute to take them back off again. The alignment of the strikers is important. They have to move effortlessly, and there can't be any drag at all. They also have to be straight. But you might also remember that just because there are usually 2 holes in between the first set of strikers. There's not always 2 holes. Like for example, here we have 2 holes between these 2 strikers, 2 holes between these 2 strikers. But it doesn't always go that way. So you can't depend on that, and so when you start lining these things up, it is possible to get off quite a bit by assuming that there's going to be 2 more pneumatics to put on before the next pneumatic in line. For example, between 4 and 5T, there's just 1 hole. Here's a good example of 2 fingers that are very close together. There's just 1 hole in between them. There's 3 in between those 2, or 2 in between those. There's 2 in between those. And as you go on up, you'll see there's another one with just 2. 1 hole right in between. So they're not symmetrical, and if you expect them to be, you'll make a mistake. When the second tier is attached to the first, you're going to have to drill a hole in these rest rails in conjunction with the screw right over here that you're going to have to then put in. And it's not a modification that is going to hurt the piano or weaken anything, but the factory had a completely different way of putting in these stacks. They had a comb that was fit to all these strikers, and the comb was held in place by the stack until they got the stack in, so they didn't have to build a stack on the piano like we do. These strikers have graphited ends, wooden ends, and sometimes they can be very much out of round. You're going to have to sand those. They can also be rough, like this one is. You'll have to sand it round and then re-graphite it before you put it back on. Otherwise they can drag on those felts, and when the wood gets really rough, it will actually stop a soft strike altogether. After each one that you do, push it. You shouldn't hear any scratches. This is the ordeal of putting in the second tier of the stack. It goes slow. The glue is certainly congealed by now, but it doesn't matter. You also have to line those ends up, and I'll go back and at them and make sure they're lined up straight. By rights, these are going to be cold joints between these sections of the stack because of the time it takes you to assemble it. But that isn't a bad thing as long as you have a good strong clamp there. The glue will conform to the joint and be 100% seal. You don't care for strength. All you care about is 100% air seal. The next thing, of course, is to put in the struts, strengthen the stack, and here I am going through another one of those holes I've drilled. It's really the only way that you can get to these things when you put the stack on this way. And unless you put the stack on this way, you're liable to run into a lot of other problems that the factory didn't worry about because they were jigged up for it. The next thing to do is put on the framework that supports the case.